Welcome, everybody. Good morning. I'm Henk van Houten. I'm the Secretary General of the European Safety Federation. Um, and we have a session of our series on risks in the construction sector, risks for health and safety, and specifically respiratory risks. Um, And we also look at the construction sector in a very wide range, not only the very strict, but also everything related to woodwork and painting, and so the whole range from the raw construction, you could say, up to the finishing. So, oh, I see a black screen now for some reason. Um, Anyway, so some practical points. So I already mentioned the webinar is recorded. Um, the only persons that are visible are indeed the speakers. Nobody else is visible in the recording, so don't worry. That also means that your video and your microphone is muted automatically from our side. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A function, or if that would not work for you, the chat function. After the webinar, we will send a mail with the link where the webinar is available on YouTube. A few words on the European Safety Federation for those that would not know us. So we are the European organization of suppliers of personal protective equipment, mainly professional use personal protective equipment. So not so much focusing on the private or on the consumer use, like in sports activities, for instance. That's for colleagues from FESI. We are, or our first layer of members are national organizations. You see the logos on the screen. And apart from that, we also have companies that join us and that can be active in our different working groups or other activities. With that, Art Jan, I see you're back. If you can, so I would like to give the floor to you to say a few words on the specific of the respiratory and introduce our speaker for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Henk. Yeah, sorry, I was dropped out for some reason. So I try to share the screen again. So today you have you will see a webinar of the ESF Working Group Respiratory Protection, and this group consists of about 20-25 people from all over Europe, coming from several branch organizations and also from some companies. And we're all, in a way, experts in respiratory protection. And together we try to collect information, to do education, and to tell, to share our expertise with the world, and also to see how we can help to improve safety in especially in respiratory protection. I think you don't see my screen yet, do you? Am I kicked out again?
You see it now, but it's black still. So, nope. So something is going wrong on your end.
I think so, yeah.
So
I'm pretty sure. So I think the best is that I suggest to give the floor to you, Ellie. Ellie is director from UCATA in the UK, specialized in asbestos training. So I want to welcome you very much that you want to do the presentation today. And so yeah, please take over the screen and and tell us more about all the things around asbestos, especially on construction sites.
Perfect. Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Yes, my name is Ellie, and I am a director recently elected at UCATA. So I'm going to talk today about asbestos, and I'm going to look at an overview of risks, controls, and guidance. So first of all then, our contents then for today. Going to the key topics that I would like us to cover today are an overview of asbestos related risks, particularly looking at respiratory risks. I want to highlight effective control measures, including prevention, collective protection and PPE. I want to look at sharing practical guidance, good practices and relevant industry resources. And we're going to have a reference then to the revised EU directive on asbestos removal and associated guidance, naturally alongside any comparable UK legislation or guidance as I am in Wales. Just one thing though I want to make very clear before we get started properly is that we are discussing asbestos removals today, but I'm not in any way qualifying you to work on it. We would need somebody competent, trained in asbestos to be able to work on it, and normally a license granted to do that work as well. So first of all then, is an asbestos a problem of the past? Yes, definitely is a problem of the past, but definitely still a problem that we are dealing with today as well. So asbestos is a silicate mineral fibre. It is found in rock veins throughout the world. And we had mines, we had construction sites, we had factories then across Europe and across the world where we were weaving those asbestos fibres into our building materials. And a huge amount of those building materials as well. So in the UK alone, we had a staggering 6 million tonnes of it imported into the UK, which went into millions more asbestos products. From really about the end of the 1800s, all the way up until 1999 then, when it was banned in the UK. Europe, though, has consumed about 50% of the cumulative world asbestos production, so we have used an awful lot of it. And it is estimated that about 4.1 to 7.3 million workers in the EU are still being exposed to asbestos now. So this legacy of asbestos containing materials is still in our architecture, still within our buildings today. In particular, one thing that we do need to think about is all the EU renovation that wave strategy that is now in place. Where they're aiming to double the annual rate of energy renovations by 2030. So 35 million buildings to be renovated. A lot of those buildings are going to be older buildings with poor energy performance. So those buildings will contain asbestos, an awful lot of them. So we're expecting a significant increase in asbestos exposures, and it's expected to increase by 4% every year up until 2030. So a little bit about the types of asbestos then. So we've got 6 types of asbestos that we commonly think about. So first of all, we've got chrysotile, the white asbestos, amosite, the brown asbestos, crucidolite, the blue asbestos, and then actinolite, anthophyllite, and tremolite. Chrysotile was the one that we use most commonly. Soft, curly, fluffy white asbestos fibres, and it's the lowest risk of our asbestos fibre types. The amosite, around about 100 times more likely to cause you cancer than breathing in the same amount of chrysotile. So significantly higher risk. And we've got short, sharp, straight needle-like fibres there. And they were really, really good for fireproofing in particular. They were good at high temperatures. They were good as an insulator. The amosite breaks down or denatures around about 1,200 degrees C. So you hold a flame to it and nothing is going to happen. It is a really, really good fireproofer. The crucidolite is really good in more industrial settings, power stations. It's really, really good for acid resistance. And you've got short, sharp, straight needle-like fibres there again. And then we've got the actinolite, anthophyllite, and tremolite that we can think about as well, that we use less often. The tremolite in particular is pretty key at the moment, where there's been a huge amount of children's play sand, stretch toys, door stops, different products like that have been tested recently and been found to contain the tremolite asbestos in small amounts. So that's something we've got a lot of recall notices going on and a lot of testing still happening there. And that's been cases found across the world of this contaminated sand. If an asbestos containing material then, so say your Artex sealing, your pipe lagging, your spray coating, your loose fill insulation, whatever it is, if it releases asbestos fibres into the air, so if it's in poor condition, it's damaged, it's deteriorating, it's been worked on without any controls, those fibres then are going to become airborne. We might breathe in those asbestos fibres. The more asbestos fibres we breathe in, the more likely we are to get an asbestos-related disease. The most common asbestos diseases then that we could think about are asbestosis, asbestos-related lung cancer, and mesothelioma. But mesothelioma is the one that I want us to think most about today. So mesothelioma is a cancer that normally starts on the pleura, the lining of the lung, but as you can see, could be the lining of any of the main body cavities. It is a very aggressive cancer, typically about 1 to 2 years after diagnosis, the person might pass away. It is the most preventable cancer. If we'd never imported asbestos into our countries, never mind it, we wouldn't be seeing any cases really of mesothelioma. It has a very long latency period. It could be anywhere within about 15 to 60 years from breathing in the asbestos fibres to showing any symptoms of mesothelioma. So it was really easy for those asbestos companies to cover it up, to deny it, to pretend like the whole thing wasn't happening. So typically people are in their 60s and 70s when they're getting mesothelioma and being diagnosed with it. But we do see cases of people much younger getting mesothelioma as well. And the reason that mesothelioma is the one that I want us to talk about the most is because mesothelioma isn't necessarily from a heavy prolonged exposure to asbestos, which is what we would have for, say, asbestosis. Sometimes people get mesothelioma when they don't know when they breathed in the asbestos, or they haven't done a huge amount of asbestos work necessarily. Okay. So figures-wise, for mesothelioma in particular, then what we can see on the screen now, we've got the EU total of deaths here. So at a country level then, Italy recorded the highest numbers of deaths by mesothelioma in the EU, followed by Germany and France, but the lowest numbers then from Cyprus and Estonia, with Malta and Luxembourg not too far behind. In the UK, really high amounts of mesothelioma, over around 2,500 deaths in the UK from mesothelioma. And that's really due to the really high amount of asbestos we imported into the UK. For the combined asbestos diseases then, statistics in Europe reveal a significant health crisis. So the European Union reports that 70,000 to 90,000 Europeans die each year from an asbestos-related cancer, and around 75% of workplace cancers in the EU are linked to asbestos. So what can we do about it? What have we got in place then to prevent us from getting these asbestos diseases? So in the UK, one of the key regulations we've got for managing asbestos is Regulation 4 of CAR 2012, the Control of Asbestos Regs 2012. And it talks about the duty to manage asbestos in all non-domestic buildings and common parts of multi-occupancy domestic properties. And there are 4 things that we should do to manage that asbestos. We should identify it, assess the risk, manage it, and communicate it. So first of all, to identify the presence of asbestos, different ways we can do it, but majority of the time that is going to be through having an asbestos survey. Once we've identified the presence of asbestos, we should collate all of that information together to create an asbestos register. And your asbestos register is your list of all your confirmed and presumed asbestos containing materials. It also should have a list of actions against it for what we're going to do with all of those asbestos materials. We then need to assess the risk. So different scores that we can do, the material risk assessment score, which tells us how likely a material is to release fibres, and the priority assessment score, which tells us how likely somebody is to come into contact with that material. So we combine those two scores together, and that then tells us how actually high risk that material is. For example, we might have some, say, damaged pipe lagging in a totally disused store cupboard that nobody can get into. It's a high risk material, but very low traffic. Or we might have damaged Artex, but in a busy classroom, lots of people in there. And that might be a bigger priority for us to sort out because there's more likely somebody is to breathe in those fibres. So we consider all of that, we assess the risk, and then we need to manage the asbestos. So in particular, we need to write the asbestos management plan, the AMP. The asbestos management plan needs to be site specific, and it contains all your policies and procedures for how asbestos is managed within the organisation or within that building. It will contain how we achieve compliance with the control of asbestos regulations and how you manage your contractors. It contains information on roles and responsibilities, training requirements, emergency procedures, anything at all to do with managing the asbestos goes into that AMP, the asbestos management plan. Really important that we communicate that information. No point having all that information there but not telling anybody about it. So that AMP, the asbestos register as well, they both have to be easily accessible, easy to understand and well communicated. It's not just about having it there. On top of that, then, it's really important we regularly review this information. So keeping all the asbestos management plan up to date, keeping it regularly reviewed, testing it as well, doing audits here, and also making sure we're doing regular re-inspections. So checking the condition of all those asbestos containing materials, checking they haven't deteriorated on last time. Okay, so we've got some options then for what we need to do with each of those ACMs as part of that action plan we're going to write. So we've got some essential things we need to do. As I said, we have to communicate the presence of the asbestos. It's not just about having that information there, but it needs to be well communicated. We have to monitor the condition, check it hasn't deteriorated, and do things about it if it has deteriorated or is starting to show signs of. And we have to put in place a safe system of work. And that may be perhaps a permit to work system to prevent people from disturbing the asbestos. The information we get here for us in the UK comes from a guidance document HSG 227, which is the Comprehensive Guide to Managing the Asbestos, and it contains information on these and also some optional management options as well. So things that we could do with our ACMs. So we don't have to do any of these, but these are all often good ideas. So some organisations, we might decide to label the asbestos materials. In particular, what's working quite well at the moment is using QR codes on asbestos containing materials, meaning that it doesn't tell you if it's asbestos or not, but you've got a QR code there, you can scan it, and it'll take you to the relevant part of the asbestos register. And you can check then that it is check if it's asbestos or not. It gives you confirmation then if you're working on a material and it's not asbestos, it's definitely safe to do so then as well. We could do colour coding, in particular colour coding non-asbestos materials, perhaps spray painting your gaskets green when they're non-asbestos so we can reassure people they're safe to work on. We could protect or enclose our asbestos materials, so box them in to make sure they don't get damaged. We could seal or encapsulate, so painting our asbestos materials to increase the life of them and prevent them from releasing fibres. We could repair them or we could remove them. But in the UK, our legislation tells us that we should avoid removing asbestos as much as possible, maintain it and keep it in good condition as long as we can by doing all these other things to manage it. Okay, so next thing I want us to have a think about is a pre-work assessment. So this is a number of questions somebody can be asking before they start doing any work. So we've got the asbestos register in place. So they need to, whoever's going to do the work in that building needs to check then the relevant part of the asbestos register and the relevant survey for where they propose to do that work. So we need to check, is it available? If it is it suitable and sufficient? Does it match up? Is it clear? Does it make sense? Is it the right type of survey? So management, refurb, demolition depend on what work they're doing, or are there any limitations or caveats? Any reasons why it's no longer appropriate? If it's okay, does the information show any asbestos materials in or near the work area? If not, they can confirm their decisions and work, but still with caution, just in case anything was missed. But if it does show asbestos materials in the working area, we want to consider, does that work make contact with that material? In which case, if somebody's only got asbestos awareness training, they can't be touching that asbestos material at all. Or could dust from the material be released accidentally? Is it a medium or high risk material in that area? In which case, we don't want to send somebody into that area. So we can stop, we can check then. We can check if there's another way of doing the work, perhaps, or do we need specialist contractors in then to make that area safe? When we have those contractors then doing work for us, there's plenty of control measures then that we can put in place. We can consider, can we avoid doing the work? Can we do it carefully, avoiding damage, restricting access, minimizing the number of people present, making sure that we're only using the competent contractors if we have to do any work. And then that work then is taking place behind barriers, behind warning signs, often within enclosures of polythene sheeting, keeping that asbestos in, and those enclosures are kept under negative pressure, making sure asbestos isn't coming out. We want to double bag our waste to make sure that it's kept inside and clearly double bagged. We want to use the Class H vacuum cleaners to shadow vac and to draw asbestos fibres away as we're working. Wet spraying, and you've got water and wetting agent mixed in together to suppress asbestos fibres as we're working. We could wet inject things like lagging to further soak into those asbestos materials. And then we want proof that that asbestos work has been done properly. So paperwork, so certificates for reoccupation after a 4-stage clearance, detailing that we've had air testing and checks so that area is clean and safe to go back into. We could do reassurance air testing and statements of cleanliness then for lower risk work as well, visual inspections. Okay, so what does that careful work involve then? So what we want to be making sure we're doing, we're avoiding the use of power tools. Don't want power tools used around asbestos at all if we can help it. We want to be keeping drills on low speed settings, avoiding disturbance of asbestos, preventing those fibres become airborne if we can. We want to wet our materials, but we want to fine mist wet spray our materials rather than absolutely soaking them and risk damaging them and risking a slurry of asbestos water. If we're using the Class H vacuum cleaner, we want to make sure we're doing it carefully, making sure we're not damaging the materials as we're doing that. And we want to wrap waste if it doesn't fit into waste bags. We don't want to be smashing up our asbestos to fit into a bag. We want to keep it in one piece as much as possible. Okay, so PP and RP then that we could be using. Coveralls then, we want to choose at least category 3 type 5 overalls. It means it doesn't allow the asbestos fibres to come through. And you've got the elasticated hood, wrist and ankles. And normally we'll have 3 different colours of overalls on a licensed job so that you can see whether or not somebody's contaminated or not. Boots without laces. Any laces are very difficult to clean, so we want to be wearing steel toe cap wellies if we can, or overshoes. Gloves, disposable ones, and we want to be considering other risks as well. So often PPE is for extra PPE, say if you're working on a nuclear power station, something like that, combining it all together. RP then needs to have a P3 filter for asbestos work. That is the only filter we want to be using. The respirator we can see here, full face respirator, which is going to have at least an assigned protection factor of 40, but for lower risk non-licensed work, we want to have a half mask for which is going to have at least an assigned protection factor of 20 normally. So as well as that then we've got the new EU directive then for asbestos, and there's a few really good things then that they've put in place that they we're working towards. So first of all, then, a tenfold reduction in the occupational exposure limit. Meaning then that due to reducing that exposure limit to so much lower, we have to use electron microscopy. So getting a much, much lower standard than what we were working to before, when it was only PCM, phase contrast microscopy, which was being used to its absolute limit. So should mean then, as well as that we need more controls in place to make sure those fibre levels are down to those lower levels. And also, it's asking for enhanced training requirements as well. So meaning that we have more focus on an understanding of making sure that we've got the knowledge and skills to handle asbestos safely. So that comprehensive specialised training covering both the theory aspects and also understanding of risks and legal requirements, practical components in place as well, learning the correct use of PPE, safe working practices, decontamination. Thinking about those training requirements, I would like to now take the opportunity to tell you a little bit about UCATA. So UCATA is United Kingdom Asbestos Training Association, and we were set up then in 2008. UCATA's mission is to remain at the forefront of asbestos training and awareness, and so hence I'm here today to try to raise awareness of asbestos. We're committed to both maintaining and improving higher standards of asbestos training through ongoing audits and checks of the members, and we're committed to promoting excellence in asbestos training through development and implementation of high quality training standards, the provision of best practice guidance, and the promotion of safe and responsible working practices within the asbestos industry. So UCATA is a leading association dedicated to improving the quality of standards of asbestos training, with the ultimate goal of protecting workers and the public from the risks associated with asbestos. We've got the core asbestos training, asbestos awareness, non-licensed, working with asbestos and licensable training, but also an extensive portfolio of courses beyond that as well, courses for project managers, for the duty to manage asbestos, so talking more about that regulation 4, asbestos in soils, and all of those can be tailored to your organisations as well. Okay, so just a final reminder then at this point that asbestos work does need to be undertaken by that trained, competent operative. And although we have talked about asbestos work, I'm not obviously in any way qualifying you to do that work. So thank you very much for your time today. Please let me know if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you, Ellie. It was a most interesting presentation.
Thank you.
And you told us a lot in quite a short time, but that's the reason. No, that's no problem. That's the reason when you only have half an hour, you wanted to give a proper information. So I think you succeeded very well in that. I have one question in the chat coming from Johan Leetonen. He's asking, why is wetting the material forbidden? Because that's something that you told.
Not forbidden. We do want to wet the material, so we want to just fine mist wet spray though, rather than absolutely soaking it. If we make it too wet, we risk then damaging the material and it all falls apart. Or we risk then having that contaminated water difficult to control, and we risk spreading that slurry of asbestos kind of outside the enclosure or outside of the working area. So we definitely do want to wet it, and that will suppress the majority of the fibres. At least 99% of the fibres should be suppressed if we are wet spraying, but as long as we're doing it properly. Okay, good. I think that answers the question. Just one short question from my side. You told us a lot about how you can how do I say that properly? How you can go when before you start a work, you have to do a lot of research. Can a construction worker be sure that all this research has been done before he starts to do some demolition or renovation work, or is it also possible that that you just don't realize that asbestos is there, or is it all very well registered? No, I definitely think that you can end up doing asbestos work without realizing, and I think that's why that pre-working assessment slide is so important, for making sure that all the information you've got is right before you get started, checking then that it's the most recent survey, it's up-to-date information, the plans kind of match the photos, match where you are, and you are absolutely certain that only then, when you are happy that that's the right information, you get started. And still, I think it's really important, if you still don't trust that information, stop, ask for extra samples to be taken, ask for extra information, just in case something has been missed. These things do happen. Sometimes the information is wrong, in particular when you are looking at older information. So yeah, I think it's not perfect, the system we've got in place, but there's more we can definitely be doing as well.
Yeah, let's call it good practice, yeah? In what is possible today. So because of the time, there's no more time for questions. But if there are still questions, you can still put them in the chat, and we will come back to you after this webinar. So Ellie, once again, thank you very much for your clear and enthusiastic presentation. Really appreciated that you were joining us today. Before ending the meeting, we will already tell you something about what's coming up next. So there will be more of those webinars, and the next presentation will be on wood dust, and that'll be after summer holiday in September. And the registration for that is already open. And then for November, we already plan a next webinar, which is focusing on solvents, because there are also a lot of solvents in the construction workplace areas. So we thought this is an important topic to cover as well. So that is it for now. Thank you for joining. Thank you for watching. And I wish you all a very good day and a very safe day, and hope to meet you again in the next webinar. Thank you very much for joining, and goodbye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.